I'm one of those old school teachers that was taught to project my voice. See, you can still hear me. Okay, on behalf of the Historic Hope Foundation and the president here, who you will hear from in a few minutes, who I think is giving the major presentation, we welcome you to the 13th Family History and Genealogy Fair, which we have. Oddly enough, the first one we had was similar to what you're going to get today, because there was a controversy over whether or not we were going to do an interpretation of the slave culture and so forth, which I thought we should, because of the fact the way things are in Berkeley County. You can't possibly not talk about slavery to get everybody in if you're going to do the history of the county and this area. So what we did, because we were moving from just interpreting the stone mansion, as I call it, the stone house, it was originally started as the interpretation of a house museum. And that's why you have the historic Hope House, the focus, but the term was historic plantation. Now, why we are doing that again today with the Bond family, because of the fact that when this book was done, they finally found out the name of the author, and she turned out to be not Hannah Craft, but Hannah Bond. Now, how did I get into this? The Herkimer, who was at East Carolina University at the time, came down here and made a talk, but it wasn't announced. It was just a private talk. And so Mrs. Bell, who was on the board, called me up in Durham at 11 o'clock that night and said, he was talking about her, and she sounds like she's in somebody's family here, and we're not sure. So what I did was decide to find out. And so what I always look in when I'm in trouble and don't know what I'm talking about is which may turn out to be not so hot anyway, when you think about it, is the fact that the major historian that everybody talked about and looked at was John Hill Wheeler. And he had what he called a book, but it really was like a diary. And it was called Reminiscences and Memoirs in North Carolina. And then he had everything set up by county. So I went in and looked in and found out that John Hill Wheeler's father was influenced to move here in what was then Berkeley County by Zedediah Stone. And he did that because of the fact that at the time, Governor Stone was going more into politics and was not going to be able to pay as much attention to the plantation. And so he had talked about having them to come in and help with that. And that's what happened. So the Wheeler family came here to this area and set up in what is now Murfreesboro. And I have to do this because we have a conundrum, because everybody liked to use the same names around here, so they did the same thing with the plantation. So the first house, Liberty Hall, was associated with the Wheelers, and it was closer up to Murfreesboro than it is here. And I'm doing that also because the author of the book did most of his documentation and so forth in Murfreesboro in that area because of the fact that he had to prove that Hannah was that literate. So I'm trying to be sure we get all of that straight so we won't have to go back. And I was laughing and telling everybody now, you better get your footnotes and everything right, because if you end up being a president somewhere and get it wrong, you'll get fired. So footnotes and so forth are now important again. I'm not going to say any more on that. The other thing I do want to say is that a lot of historians consider Bertie as the most unique county in North Carolina and in some other places because of the behavior of the white folks. I'm going to just tell it like it is today and then let you all kick me around later. And the reason why I'm saying that is we were doing some organization of collections for Fort McKissick and Soul City way back when. And somebody asked us to have a talk about it. And we had a historian there named Dr. Doris Watson. And she does a lot of stuff related to research in the courthouses and so forth, because she was Floyd McKissick's major researcher since he was a lawyer. We have a lawyer in here too, so he understands what I'm saying about that. And she got up and talked, and we were talking about all the counties and so forth and what we were finding in the collection. And she said, well, you know, Bertie is unique and different. So when she explained why, I never had thought about it. I was living right here and should have known that. But what was happening in Bertie County was this. And I'm going to give you the reason why I use that as a theme. Okay, you know we are supposed to have a very rigid caste system. The blacks are here and the whites are there. Only in Bertie, that's not necessarily so, as you will find out today. We had a person from Bertie there, and he was white, and then he thought about it, and he agreed with her, and then he looked at me and put me on the spot by asking me if I knew why. And then I thought about it, and I said, well, it's this kind of way. The Ku Klux Klan in Bertie can go out to hang a black person and then find out that they are related and be the first one at the funeral the next day crying. And everybody agreed. So what I'm saying is that in Bertie County, you may be in trouble depending on your last name and who you are and so forth. So I'm just telling it like it is so you all can understand this. Okay, so now, so that you all won't throw me out for being long-winded, I'm going to get on with what I'm supposed to do. What I would like to do, my other philosophy is, and I'm not a politician, that's why it's very important that I do this. It's always good to know who's in the room before you say everything. So, what I want to do is, would all of the people who have surname Bond, B-O-N-D, stand? Look around, folks. So you got the Bonds in here. Okay, how many of those Bonds are African American? Raise your hand. Everybody. But you see one in there that looks like he's white, doesn't you? So that ought to tell you something. All right. Okay, how many cherries do we have in here? See there? All right. Whether you know it or not, you related to the Bonds too. Okay, how many rascals do you have in here? R-A-S-C-O-E. Right, see, you're doing it. That's exactly what I'm saying. Okay, how many outlaws? O-U-T-L-A-W. Go ahead. I was going to do that first, but go on and stand up if you have out the blood. Okay, look, see all these outlaws, and I'm raising my hand too. Okay, how many did I say rascals? Okay, um, how about Gillums? Gilliam and Gillam. Okay. By the way, they dropped the A out of the white Gillums back in the 1870s, late. I guess they were trying to decide to differentiate themselves from the black Gillum. Okay. Have I missed any other group? Let's see. Cherries, Rasco. Did I get the Rasco? Okay.
I'm a Mitchell.
Right, right.
My surname is Mitchell, but my maternal grandmother was born in Windsor. She was a Bond. As a matter of fact, she was born in 1905.
Who is your mother?
Well, my mother's passed away, but my grandmother, her father's name was Joe B. Bond, and her mother's name was Willie B. Bond. Matter of fact, back in the day, she also attended Bertie Academy.
Okay.
She was attended there, and they lived in the Cedar Landing area.
Right. Right.
I also have Smallwood blood in me. I am a Smallwood. Robert Spirit Smallwood is my dad.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten to them yet, but since you did it, you saved me the trouble. Okay, and I'm glad you brought up the Mitchells because my great grandmother was a Mitchell, and she married an outlaw. And by the way, the best way to see what I'm talking about is to go to those family cemeteries. For an example, the Outlaw Cemetery got more spellers and rascals and Bond in there than they have outlaw. I mean, the surnames and so forth. And you can just flip that. So rather than take up any more time on that, I'm just letting you realize that you can be at least 4 or 5 different things in here, be related to everybody in here today. So that's why I'm saying that. So we don't want to be hearing anything about that's a different set of Bonds and this is a different set of rascals. There's no such thing in Bertie County because they're related. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to do is say to you that it's sometimes very hard to get one of the white families to get up and tell the truth. But that's unique in Bertie County too. I'm gonna take privilege because I'm up here and got the mic to also tell you this, that in my dealings, the outlaws are the most unique group in here when it comes to race relations. From my experience working in the University of North Carolina system, when some of the outlaws moved back from Mississippi, which I didn't even know it was any down there, but they had been females moved down there and married other families, but they were outlaws. And one of the men came back here and got on the UNC Board of Governors. And he came down to Elizabeth City. And he came up to me and said, well, where are you from? I said, I'm from Bertie County. And then he started talking and so forth. And I didn't say anything. And he said, well, who are you related to? I said, the Outlaws, the Rascals, or whatever. And I went on. Well, he was a DEES, but he didn't tell me who he was. Well, he called back to Mississippi and told his mother he had met this black person that was a speller, but he was also related to the outlaw. So what happened was this. At the same time, the reason why he ended up here was the fact that he had taken a job here. And this was in 1973. And Governor Holshouser had just gotten in. And of course, this was when the Republicans walked through the door, as I call it. So they ended up with a problem that they were trying to deal with. And Dees called me up and said, "You're down there. We want you to do this." Now, I'm a registered Democrat. So I asked him, I said, "Well, why are you doing that?" He said, "Well, you know everybody. And regardless of what happens, we are in a hurry, so we don't have time for politics. We want you to do so and so and so." So I decided, okay, since I got to do it, and Elizabeth City is too small for the resources, I said, "Do I have any relatives over at East Carolina University?" So he got on the phone and called up, and come to find out, they were just about one outlaw and everything over there. So he went down there and told them that he had me coming there and what I was. Well, by the time I got there, they were all ready for me. They apologized if I had been mistreated as a slave. They went through the whole universe. I was sick of them. But from then on, if I needed anything, the reason why I'm taking the time to say that, family networks are very important in this country. And if you are in the right families, and I'm gonna qualify this, and know what you are doing and gonna make them look good, they're gonna use you. So from then on, I did not have any trouble in the legislature or anywhere else. So I'm saying this so that everybody black in here knows, don't overlook your white relatives, because this is the thing: blood is thicker than water. So down here in Burt T, we learned that real quick. And I thought I would share that because at this point in time, we need everything we can to survive as a country. And that's my politics for the day. Now I'm going to turn it over to our fearless leader here, Dr. Turner Sutton, who is the president of Historic Hope. And we want to thank you for coming in and carrying forward the original plan that we had for interpretation of interpretation of slavery in the Plantation South, because that's the only way we can look at the history of Burt T. County adequately. Thank you.